When you decide to walk away, you feel something shift inside, like a tide turning beneath calm waters. It isn't a scream or a burst of anger. It's a soft, persistent urging. Your need for peace, your need for self-respect, quietly insisting you move. There's a stillness in that moment, a pause that hums faster than usual. You're not running, you're choosing. At first, relief washes over you like warm sunlight after a long storm. You recognize you're no longer bound to emotional exhaustion, no longer sustaining a version of yourself that was meant to fit someone else's expectations. That energy you used to pour into appeasing, performing, denying yourself, it's suddenly free. You can breathe in again. It feels lighter inside. But relief is just the beginning. Almost immediately, grief arrives. It's a mourning for what used to be, for routines shared, promises whispered in the dark, dreams built together around falling in love. Even if you stayed only in pain, you'll miss a version of yourself that once existed in that story. Jung taught us that when the persona, the image we wear to the world, breaks down, it opens a raw space inside where the hidden parts of self, our shadow, come rushing in. This feeling of grief is part of that breakdown. You lose not only a person or situation, but pieces of identity you once thought defined you. Confusion steps in next. Your mind fills with questions. Should I feel guilty? Am I cruel? What if I'm just repeating old patterns of avoidance or self-sabotage? All around you, echoes of doubt ripple like faulty reflections. That uncertainty isn't accidental to this process. It's the shadow pushing back. Until you bring those hidden parts into light, they replay themselves through fear, projection, suspicion. Jung called this the shadow erupting when unconscious. Walking away can trigger projection and self-questioning until you face it directly. Then a shift, clarity. Not loud or flashy, but a quiet inner voice steadies itself. This isn't just leaving behind someone, it's reclaiming your own space. You begin to rediscover fragments of self you gave up: authenticity, boundaries, dignity. The shadow inside you, those traits you denied, start to reveal their gifts. Jung believed that the shadow holds both what limits us and what enriches us. Anger becomes boundary setting, sadness becomes release, strength becomes activation of will. Emotionally, it becomes complex. You might cry for lost innocence, unspoken words, a version of love that ended. But alongside tears comes pride, steady, understated pride, for choosing yourself over exhaustion. Anger may rise, not lashing out, but at last acknowledged for neglect or disrespect you endured. In Jungian terms, this is energy from the shadow seeking recognition, no longer hidden, but becoming conscious. Almost at once, beneath guilt or embarrassment, a deep sense of freedom appears. A deep inhale after months of holding your breath. You feel creativity returning, ideas you silenced, passions you tucked away to avoid conflict, voice you muted to feel safe. That creative energy lived hidden in the shadow. Once integrated, it flows into your everyday life and lifts you toward wholeness. With time, you notice how relationships shift. You don't feel triggered as intensely. Boundaries feel smoother. People who drained you before feel distant or less relevant, not out of bitterness, but because your energy changed. When you integrate your shadow, you stop unconsciously fueling other people's imbalances and projections. You become less available to patterns that once cost you energy. Walking away becomes less a one-time decision and more a turning point in a longer journey. You become aware that individuation, becoming your whole, unique self, is ongoing. Every emotional trigger becomes an opportunity to pause. What is this really revealing? What part of me am I denying? That pause is shadow work in action, active imagination meeting real life. Jung believed integration must be continuous, Only then does the self grow steadily. At some point after, empathy emerges. For yourself and even for those you've left behind. You realize their actions mirrored your own unacknowledged aspects. In that realization, there's compassion, not excuse-making, but a release from entanglement. You step out of old dramas. You make space for your light and allow others theirs too. Creativity begins to bloom in quiet ways. Small habits, new interests, dreams you once suppressed. You write, paint, speak, laugh in ways that surprise you. That's the life living inside the shadow, once buried, now unearthed. Jung wrote that creativity springs from those parts we've repressed. When they're brought to light, they bring vitality. To the people watching you walk away, your act may look jarring, sudden, abrupt, maybe cold. They may feel confusion or pain, but inside you, the emotional tone is different. Less drama, more resolve. Less silence, more alignment. More presence. Because walking away isn't about abandonment. It's about becoming yourself. It's the start of moving toward wholeness by facing what was hidden. It's the liberation that arises when you reclaim your own inner world. And in the end, walking away isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about coming back to yourself after all the bending, all the breaking, all the ways you shrank just to make something work that was slowly undoing you. It's about understanding that peace isn't found by forcing connections, but by honoring your own truth, even when it's painful. When you walk away, you're not choosing loneliness. You're choosing alignment. You're choosing to stop abandoning yourself. And slowly, as you step further into that decision, you begin to feel whole again. The noise quiets, the doubts soften, and something deep inside you, something that had been waiting for a very long time, finally breathes again. So, in the quiet aftermath of walking away, you begin to realize it was never really about leaving them. It was about returning to you. It's about finally listening to that inner voice that had been silenced for too long. The journey isn't clean or easy, but it is freeing. You lose what was false to make space for what's real. And as time passes, the pain fades, the lessons stay, and your sense of self grows stronger. You don't walk away to escape, you walk away to evolve. And in doing so, you reclaim your power, your peace, and the pieces of you that were always meant to rise.